we come back, they're back. I'm talking about speed cameras, and the latest municipality to make the, I think, wrong-headed decision to use them is the village of New Richmond in Claremont County, Ohio. But there's a local activist who's kind of thrown a monkey wrench in the works with these New Richmond speed cameras, and for that, I commend him, and we're going to talk to him about this issue when we come back. Mike Allen, News Radio 700 WL.com. News Radio 700 WLW, hour 2 of Saturday midday. Well, like I said, they're back, and speed cameras, of course, I'm talking about. And they're back, well, they were back. They're gone now, but they may be back after that. I'm talking about the ones that they initially put up in the village of New Richmond. New Richmond had a warning period, which started on May 1st. The tickets started coming out, the speed camera tickets that are not written by a police officer, that are generated by a computer somewhere in this country. They started coming out on May the 20th, and this is great. As usual, village officials swear it's not about revenue, it's all about public safety. Right, and I got a bridge to sell you somewhere. The village administrator, a guy named Greg Roberts, said, and I don't mean to disrespect Mr. Roberts, but it is laughable. He was quoted as saying, quote, "We hope the revenue is zero. If the revenue is zero, then that means that there are no speeders, and that's the goal," close quote. Nonsense. The goal is revenue, and you're going to find out why in a minute. But let me tell you this, though. That's kind of funny because in the village council minutes from the June 25th meeting, revenue was cited as a justification for installing these cameras. And I'm looking at it now. The exact quote was they had a list of things that would justify it. And one of them was revenue for the New Richmond Police Department. And I got nothing against giving a police department more resources. I support that wholeheartedly, but it's how you go about doing it. And speed cameras just ain't the right way. And here to talk about this issue and what he's doing about it and what potentially can be done on a state level to finally, once and for all, end these darn things. He's on the AcuteHearingCenter.com hotline. I'm talking about Chris Hicks. You know what, stir extraordinaire. Chris has been like white on rice on this issue. And Chris, welcome to Saturday Midday.
Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate you having me on. And this is a great topic to talk about. Something you failed to mention is Mr. Roberts, who's a nice guy generally, just yesterday or the day before put out something saying that part of the speed cameras was to promote safety walking and biking. But they're along a state highway where the speed limit's 50 miles an hour. Hopefully not too many people are walking and biking on a 50-mile-an-hour highway.
Let me tell you, as a veteran of this fight, with the scars to prove it, all this nonsense that it's about public safety, it's just not accurate. It's about revenue. Hey, Chris Hicks, walk us through the whole process of how the village of New Richmond started this process and why it has now been shut down.
Well, absolutely. So the village of New Richmond has the potential to be a beautiful place and they have a thriving economy, but they're a very small village. They're desperate for cash. There are like a lot of small villages that look to and get enticed by these speed camera things. The way we're going to make money is by abusing our own citizens, by sucking money out of their wallets, that most of the money goes to the speed camera company. It doesn't even go to the villages. So in New Richmond, what happened, they went down this path. So far as I know, the only elected official in Claremont County that has spoken out against them is our sheriff, Steve Leahy, who you were in a story with him back in February of 2018 where he called speed cameras policing for profit.
It is.
So I really appreciate him, and I appreciate him standing up. What happened in New Richmond, it makes it even more comical, is the road they put them on is State Route 52.
Right.
That's a state highway regulated by the Ohio Department of Transportation. Back in July of 2018, they asked for permission from the state to mount cameras. They were told no. They appealed in August of 2018. They were told no a second time, but they went ahead and put them up anyway. And if you look at, you referred to their minutes, if you look at their minutes from the meeting where they said they were going to do it, they kind of, you can tell they're pulling a game because they talk about portable cameras,
right,
not mounted cameras. And what they actually did was mount cameras. So I don't even know how legally their solicitor can let them do this. They're violating the law, which requires that ODOT give approval for speed cameras mounted in the right-of-way, and ODOT has said no to them twice.
And Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, they are currently shut down, right?
They're shut down. They're not issuing tickets, but I hear all the time, Mike, that people driving by them still see the camera flashes.
Right.
So what they need to do is make sure they're not just shut down, but they are unplugged. They are unplugged.
Hey, let me say this, Chris.
Then we'll see what happens.
What they ought to do is talk to the officials in the village of Elmwood, because what happened there was Judge Robert Ruhlman ordered that they be shut down. And what happened was exactly what you just said. They stopped writing tickets, but they were still turned on. And Judge Ruhlman, he doesn't play. He ordered the cameras confiscated, and that's exactly what they did.
We need a judge like that out in Claremont County. You referenced the minutes, and I just want to say something about the minutes. So in their newsletters, they say it's about safety, but in their council minutes, they said it was about revenue.
Yeah.
Here's another fun thing.
I'm looking right at it, Chris.
They put that in their minutes, but let me tell you something else that's interesting. Not recorded in their minutes, in one of their council meetings, their mayor, Ramona Carr, made statements that she and the sheriff would review the pictures and issue citations focusing on non-residents. So think about that constitutional issue. We're going to police them. And I'll tell you, Mike, I think part of this, I know there's big places that use these cameras like Toledo and so forth, but you know, in these small places, it's a desperation move preying upon these fiefdoms of small villages that are trying to survive when they don't have an economic vision. New Richmond has the potential to be a beautiful place, build some condos down there with the garages below them in the floodplain, so we're good to go on FEMA rules. But there's no vision. It's a vision. If your vision is let's rape our citizens by pulling money out of their pockets on speed cameras, that's your economic plan. It's time for you to start thinking about dissolving as a village so you can get some better management in place.
You know, and like I said, Chris Hicks, and I would assume you feel the same way, I don't have any problem with supporting financially your police department to the utmost extent. But you can't do that on the backs of motorists that are not going to have a chance, a real chance, a fair chance to fight these things, although the rules have been changed somewhat now. Let me ask you this, because I know that you are well versed on this subject. Correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, in large part because of the efforts of State Representative Bill Seitz in the House and back in the Senate when he was in the Senate. If I'm not mistaken, any dough that a municipality makes from speed cameras will be deducted from what they receive from the state of Ohio. Is that your understanding as well? Okay.
Yeah, there's two things in the law, Mike, is that the new laws, which I really take a hats off to Representative Bill Seitz, is the two things are that they lose $1 from the local fund for every dollar of speed camera revenues. We know over time, different subject, different dates, local fund's been cut a lot, so you might still get some of these places that think they can make it up on the volume. The other thing is, under the new law, if you protest the ticket, it has to go through municipal court, and the village has to pay the court costs. Now, the people that have tickets that were issued during the 1 month period, just in case any of them are listening, that was under the old law. So you still have these rinky-dink mayor's court type things that take place on these tickets. And I want to throw in just one other thing, too. It's come to light. At one point, the village of New Richmond asked our sheriff to put together a proposal for having the sheriff take over the policing versus having their own standalone police department. That proposal would have saved New Richmond over $200,000 a year. It was hidden from the council by their own mayor, the facts of the proposal. But instead, they go down a path, because I'll tell you another problem with these, and you're probably aware of it in some of these small places. The mayors like to have their own little private police force. They like to have control of a fiefdom. It's wrong. It's the kind of thing that results in a mayor saying in a meeting that they're going to focus on targeting non-residents for tickets.
Yeah,
it's just wrong, and it's time for this to change.
That's problematic, I think, constitutionally. Well, let me ask you something. School me on this. If the Village of New Richmond, let's just say they get $50,000 revenues from speed cameras, and the state of Ohio says, "Okay, New Richmond, we're gonna cut what we give you by 50."
Local fund.
Yeah, the local fund. What's the point of having them?
I think the beauty of Bill Seitz, the way he put it in the law this time, is that they can still have them. It's just they're not going to make any money off of them, and that's the irony of the whole thing. Is I joke with my friends saying, well, then I guess they'll keep running the program since it was all about safety anyway.
Right.
You know, they probably want to increase the income tax so they can get more money to pay for speed cameras to promote the safety. You hit it right on the head. This is all about money grab. It's all about people's ego, hubris, and wanting to keep control of their little fiefdoms. And the reality, and if you've been to New Richmond, anybody been to New Richmond, that place has great potential. There is great history. You can go right down the road. If you build some right-style condos and have an economic plan down there, the river views are beautiful. I want to give a hats off that now that everybody knows the speed cameras are turned off, they have river days in New Richmond. It's August 2 through 4. I would encourage people to feel safe going there, at least that they're not going to get some bogus speed camera ticket.
Let me ask you this question, Chris Hicks, and it may be the most important question. You and I have spoken about this. I've spoken to others about it. I personally feel the only way that you're going to finally drive a stake through the heart of speed cameras and red light cameras, and again, Bill Seitz tried, and he came darn close to doing that. In light of that, I feel the only way that you're going to do it is to get a change or an addition to the state constitution doing that. That's a huge process. But I'll tell you this, Chris Hicks, if I haven't already told you, where these things get on the ballot, they are defeated 80 to 20, 70 to 30. People hate these things, and you've taken the step to prepare language to do just that. Are you planning on trying to get this on the statewide ballot?
Yeah. So just so people know the process, the reason why places can do this kind of stuff is a thing called home rule in our Constitution that basically allows a village, a municipality to make up their own laws. They don't have to necessarily follow the Ohio Revised Code. And so they can do things that otherwise would not be proper, like a township can't, they have more limited capabilities. So what I'm doing is I've already had some people helping me draft language for a constitutional amendment. I'm looking forward to getting some of your feedback on it. I know you've seen it. I appreciate the feedback you've given me. The next step in that is we have to get the right language, I'm working already, got examples for petitions. You get 1,000 signatures, get it certified that the language can be on the ballot. Then a big hitter comes. You got to get something in the order of 400,000 signatures statewide. And we know the speed camera companies will try to probably stop any such thing. But I tell you what, if we get 400,000 signatures and it gets on the ballot someday in Ohio, there is no amount of money speed camera companies can dump into commercials on this thing that's going to keep it from passing. The people hate these things. It's unfair. The other thing that's unfair is because it's a civil thing they cite you under, not a criminal thing. They don't have to prove it was you driving the car. So it gets right at the core of, I don't see how any government leader can, with a straight face, support this civil type approach of things that's specifically designed to take. It's not about safety. It's not about justice. It's about taking money out of people's wallets.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And the other thing you need to do, too, is to find a sugar daddy somewhere who's willing to put up $1 million or raise a couple million, because you hit the nail on the head, Chris Hicks. And I saw this through the legislative process. It went through the House without just about any kind of amendments that these things are done. Once it got in the Senate, man, that's when these speed camera companies started spending some big bucks on lobbyists. And that's why, in spite of Bill Seitz's effort, we got the hybrid that we did. It would be nice to have somebody who's got a lot of money sitting around that'll pay for people getting those signatures. Hey, with that, Chris, I wish we had more time and we can do it again, but I got to take a break here. But I wanted
real quick, Mike.
Real
if
quick.
People are interested in this. Go to my HicksWatchdog.com. HICKS Watchdog.com. If you want to get involved, if you want to be part of trying to get these things done, that's the best way to get in touch with me, and my contact stuff is all right there.
Good deal, Chris Hicks. Thank you so much for your efforts in this. I think it's very important.
Thank you, Mike, for having me on.
Okay, my pleasure. That was Chris Hicks, the guy that's fighting the speed cameras out in New Richmond, and one way or the other, we finally got to drive the final nail in the heart of these things because they're bad news. Hey, we got to take a break, but we got some calls on this issue. I'll try to get to some of them when we get back. Mike Allen, News Radio 700 WL1. We're back, News Radio 700 WLW. We just talked to Chris Hicks, who stirs things up out there in Claremont County, and somewhat controversial, but I don't know about anything else. He is absolutely on the right side on this whole speed camera thing, this time New Richmond, Ohio. And I talked to Chris about his effort, and I commend him for this. It's going to be a huge job, though, of getting this thing on the statewide ballot to get rid of these damn things once and for all so the government can't stick their hands in your pockets and pull about $100 out without giving you a fair chance to fight them. Through the miracle of the internet, I was able to find what I was talking about before, what happened in 2014 in the city of Cleveland. It was on the ballot in Cleveland, getting rid of speed cameras. Get this. And this is indicative of votes around the country where it gets on the ballot. 2014 in Cleveland, 78% of voters in the city of Cleveland voted to get rid of speed cameras. And again, that's about the way it turns out everywhere it's put on the ballot. And I believe that the only way to finally get rid of these things in Ohio, and good people have tried to do that. Again, I'd cite Bill Seitz's efforts, but the only way to do it is to get that amendment on the Ohio Constitution, and I commend Chris Hicks for at least trying. You know, I didn't really anticipate this, but we got a ton of calls on this subject. I wish I could get to all of them, but let me try Brian here. Hey, Brian, what do you got on this topic? But you got to be quick.
Hey, long time, first time, but
thank you.
Why don't they, instead of putting up the cameras, start pulling over all the cars that drive with their high beams on?
Well, they could do that. And
that's a revenue.
Yeah, the other thing that they could do, Brian, is to, if they're truly concerned about speed out there on Route 52, put a police officer there with traditional laser or radar, where the person has a fair chance of fighting it if they want to. Let me tell you this. I've spent more time in municipal courts than probably many people in the state, and it is extremely rare that a citizen challenges a speeding ticket. But by God, when they do, they ought to have a fair chance to fight it.
Well, there's between 275, 75, and Richmond, everybody drives with their high beams on now.
Yeah.
What they could pull a car over every 5 seconds and give them a ticket, and then that's their enhancement revenue.
Well, you know,
because it's illegal to drive with your high beams on, correct?
Sure it is.
Well, then go that route instead of putting up darn cameras.
I hear you, Brian, and I really appreciate your input on that. You know, my position on those stupid things always are: you're worried about speed, you're worried about running red lights, don't go to a camera, put a uniformed police officer there who will cite you under the Ohio Revised Code. So therefore, you have a fair chance to fight it if you want to. Not many do, but if they do, it ought to be fair. Hey, we got to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to talk to Lance McAllister about